The Oversight Committee will reconvene. We're now back in order. The chair recognizes Ms. Crockett for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. The problem with going this late in the game is there's so much that's been put out there. You're just kind of all over the place, so just rock with me for a little bit. First of all, I want to get the elephant out of the room. Just to be clear, both of you provided deposition testimony, and in your depositions, neither one of you ever stated that President Joe Biden interfered with your investigations, correct?
The transcript doesn't include that, no.
Yeah, the transcript does not include that.
Nor does it include that Merrick Garland interfered with your investigations, correct?
The transcript does not say that, no.
Thank you. The reason that I say that is because it's the insinuation that this committee is trying to make, or at least one side of this committee is trying to make, is that for some reason there was interference, and my colleagues continue to make sure that they outline the fact that this investigation actually started under the Trump administration. So that's the reason about who appointed who comes up. But at the end of the day, we have no evidence whatsoever that the president nor the Attorney General of the United States interfered. But I also want to make sure that we outline some legal principles, since we've got so many newfound prosecutors today on this committee. Number one, just to be clear, just because you investigate something, it doesn't necessarily mean that there will be a conviction, correct?
That's correct.
That is correct.
Okay. In fact, in our criminal justice system, you are cloaked in a presumption of innocence. That is what happens under the Constitution, okay? So we all have a role to play. Your role is investigative, correct?
Correct.
All right. So then you have an AUSA, who usually is the one that is responsible for taking the evidence. Actually, they probably have an investigator in their office. There's usually an investigator that is directly within their office that will review any documentation that you provide, and then they will sit down and talk to the AUSA's office about recommendations, like what the charges will look like and things like that. Is that not correct?
If that's correct, I've never seen that.
Okay. Well, let me be clear. There is a level after you get done with your investigation in which the U.S. Attorney's Office then will look at the evidence that you've provided, and they will make decisions, correct?
Yes, and they all four assigned attorneys agreed with recommending felony and misdemeanor tax charges.
I heard your testimony before. I'm not going to dispute that. The difference is I've done the defense side of this before. So as far as I'm concerned, it sounds like a sweetheart deal, because I've never pled anyone to every single count of a federal indictment in the first place, unless they only had one count. I have always negotiated, and unlike on the state level, I typically do my negotiations a lot of times before there's even an indictment, because a lot of times my clients are actually turning evidence over and all kinds of things. But the thing is, those conversations have never taken place with an investigator. They always take place with the U.S. attorney. So the point is, you don't have the ultimate charging authority. The people that did, they decided to do what they decided to do for whatever reasons, correct?
So in my experience, I've always been a part of that, at that table, talking to the AUSA and talking about the charging decisions. So that's not accurate to say that I'm not,
so for this,
investigator is not involved in that
So
process.
this time it was a little different for you, and that's why you felt as if something was wrong. But I want to get to something else really quickly. I want to talk about what we should be prosecuting. We should be looking at the fact that in 2017, Trump's first year in office, he also made $6.5 million from China, his tax returns show. The source of the China payments is not clear from the returns. The payments were a surprise, since Trump is an outspoken critic of the $5.8 million that Hunter Biden made. The difference is Trump was our president when he made this money from China, whereas I'm sure you would agree with me, Hunter Biden has always been a private citizen. We've got a lot of other stuff. In fact, it's clear that Trump never paid more than $750 in taxes for, I want to say, a total of like 2 years of his taxes, which is absolutely insane. But we also know that it showed that Trump claimed large cash donations to charities, but the report said the IRS did not verify them. The report also said that while Trump's tax filings were large and complicated, the IRS does not appear to have signed experts to work on them. That is shameful. In addition to that, we heard testimony earlier that talked about whether or not you executed a search warrant under section 913.420 of the DOJ's Justice Manual. It specifically states that when searching the premises of an attorney that is the subject of an investigation, prosecutors are expected to take the least intrusive approach consistent with vigorous and effective law enforcement. It's kind of what they did for Trump when they gave him a number of opportunities to turn over the documents, our national secrets, that he kept in the toilet. But he chose not to, and that's why he is facing federal charges down in Florida. And finally, I just want to make sure that we clear up something about the Central Park 5, because I don't think my colleague from the other side of the aisle understands that not only were they found to be not guilty, they were paid $41 million in a 2014 settlement because their civil rights in that lawsuit were violated. In addition to that, we do know that one of the Central Park 5 now serves on city council, Yusuf Salam. So I ask unanimous consent that I allow this.
Without objection to order, and the lady's time's expired, but would the lady yield to a quick question?
So who?
Would you yield to a question?
Yes.
You made the argument that Trump received $6 million from China or something, and Hunter Biden received the money from China. Do you know exactly what Hunter Biden did to receive the money from China? Because that's something we've had a hard time trying to figure out. I think I know what Trump's businesses were. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just know what his businesses are. I don't know what the Biden's businesses are.
And you don't know what it's not.
Well,
I'm sorry?
And you don't know what it's not either.
But what I'll say.
So you have no idea why or why not he received that money.
What I will say is,
You have no evidence about it.
Can I submit this MSNBC or this NBC article for the record as well?
Without objection, so ordered.
And I will say that in this article, it specifically says that the source of a number of Trump's monies, it was unclear.
Okay.
He just said that he did have businesses there. He did say that he had opened some bank accounts in China, but they could not find the source of the monies that were paid to him from China.
Chair recognizes Mr. Turner from Kansas for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for being here today. There's a lot of information. Let's try to quickly lay this out for the American people, okay? So quick answers. How long have each of you worked for the IRS? Mr. Shapley, you first.
14 years.
13 years.
Is it fair to say that you both have had successful careers at the IRS? You've both been recognized for your achievement there?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are either of you overly partisan people?
I am not, no.
Yeah, I've made an effort to not be overly, like, I've made an effort to be partisan. I apologize.
Do either of you have a burning desire, or have you ever, to be a spectacle at a congressional hearing? Are you wanting to be on TV? Are you looking for your 15 minutes of fame here?
I would prefer not to be here.
Yeah, I'd never imagined that this would happen, but here I am.
Then quickly, for the American people, why did you step forward?
Because we need the equal application of justice, and we hear all these stories about these crimes that are committed that are horrible. But without the equal application of justice, I don't understand how we move forward, and I don't understand how I meet my oath of office if I don't do what I can to ensure that occurs. There are 300 million taxpayers out there that they think that this hearing is a big deal because they're paying their taxes and they see someone who isn't.
And Mr. Ziegler?
So it's a matter of accountability. So it's twofold. The matter of accountability. We need to hold those accountable who basically for the last 5 years hasn't been following proper procedure. And the second part of this is that I think we need to have some reform or something that's built in there that this doesn't happen to people again, investigators.
Let's get the facts out. The Biden family and their associates received millions in global payments from companies linked to Ukraine, Romania, and China, funneled through various shell companies. Mr. Ziegler, is that correct?
That is correct. It's 17.3 million.
Quickly, Mr. Shapley, what is a special agent report?
It's the report that recommends prosecution for various charges, each of which have been proven, each element.
Approximately how many of these over your career have you been a part of or have you prepared? Guess.
Hundreds.
Hundreds. Did you complete a special agent report for the Hunter Biden case?
Special Agent Ziegler authored that report.
I completed that report.
And when this special report was sent up the chain of command, just like you all have been involved with, in your case, Mr. Shapley, hundreds of times. Did you notice anything outside of the normal process that you have grown used to over the years?
So the changing at criminal tax attorneys was definitely inappropriate and out of the norm. But no, after that, the senior leadership quickly trumped CT Council, and they concurred with the charges. So we sent it forward to the Department of Justice Tax Division for further approval.
And Mr. Ziegler?
Everything that he just said was correct.
Now, Mr. Shapley, you recommended felony charges in this special agent report. And we all know the answer, but was Hunter Biden ultimately charged with those felonies?
No, he was not.
Mr. Ziegler, what role did Leslie Wolf play in the investigation?
So she was an assistant United States attorney out of the District of Delaware assigned to the investigation.
You met with her and her team during the Hunter Biden case, correct?
That is correct. In
your testimony to Ways and Means, you described Assistant U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf, who was once again overseeing the case out of Delaware, as saying during a meeting that she did not want to ask about the big guy and stated she didn't want to ask questions about Dad. Is that statement accurate? And I want to remind you that you're under oath. Is that accurate, your testimony to Ways and Means?
Can you ask that question one more time so I can...
She said, Leslie Wolf said, during a meeting that she did not want to ask about the big guy and stated she didn't want to ask questions about Dad.
So there's twofold to that. There's that line in the email that said 10 held by H for the big guy. That was something that came up as a part of us reviewing what we were going to say during that day. And she immediately says, no, we're not going to ask that. And then we essentially had to argue our stance on why we should ask it.
Okay.
And then it was ultimately that we didn't know, it was unknown.
I appreciate that. Mr. Shapley, you stated in public interviews that you and your team were stopped from taking certain investigative steps that you believe could have potentially connected this Hunter Biden case to President Biden. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, I just want to summarize as quickly as I can here. We have two credible, nonpartisan IRS investigators confirming that there are millions of dollars in foreign payments to shell companies to the Biden administration. We have Hunter Biden, who most of us wouldn't hire to dog sit, receiving these millions of dollars for services that they cannot come forward and tell us about, and that potentially this is linked to President Biden, but we don't know that for a fact because you were shut down. You were not allowed to pursue the investigative angle that you wanted to. This is something that we have to get to the bottom of. It's shameful what's happening, and I want folks to mark my words that we will not be stifled. This committee will not be stifled by the Department of Justice or anyone in the Biden administration. We are going to pursue this and get to the bottom of this no matter what. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Chair recognizes Mr. Gomez for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I just want to be clear, whistleblower allegations should be taken seriously, period. I had a whistleblower approach my office during my first term. But one of the things I learned from that is that there's a clear, fact-based process that needs to be followed to ensure a whistleblower investigation is executed properly without political interference. This is not what is happening here today. Where this originated in Ways and Means, Republicans threw that process into the gutter. Here's how. One, there were more than 50 people identified in the Ways and Means Committee's depositions on this same topic that were not spoken to and not interviewed before the Republican majority released these allegations to the public. They didn't take the time to check their fact. And the Republicans even admitted during questioning that they never interviewed or asked questions or sought to ask questions of these individuals. Instead, Republicans cherry-picked 13 people who they knew agreed to corroborate their claims. Why wouldn't they conduct a thorough investigation and interview all people identified who might have information in this case? There are more than 50 people who weren't given the opportunity to defend their names, respond to allegations, or give this inquiry important context and facts. Two, the whistleblower transcript contains unauthenticated, unverified documents from unknown searches on the internet. The exhibit used by the gentleman from Ohio in the early part of this hearing is one of those unverified documents pulled from the internet. Yet they treat it as a smoking gun. You can literally find anything on the internet. That doesn't make it true, and Republicans refuse to verify their sources. They are trying to give the appearance that these documents are from IRS files provided by the whistleblower or from some trusted source, but in fact, they are not. These documents are unauthenticated, and we don't even know their real source. What kind of basis is this for a serious investigation? 3, the majority released this transcript with all these errors I cited to the public before verifying any of these allegations. They put the cart far before the horse, declining to speak to over dozens of valuable witnesses, refusing to verify the information they pushed to the public, throwing this whole process and its credibility out the window. Additionally, this process has been tainted by the fact that one of these whistleblowers' attorneys has made substantial contributions to the Republican chairman of Ways and Means as recently as February of this year. And one of these whistleblowers didn't even come voluntarily. He was asked to testify by his supervisor. None of this inspires confidence in these efforts of my colleagues across the aisle or in the process that has been taken. If my colleagues were serious about these allegations, they would have gone through the proper steps to ensure this investigation was done correctly, but they didn't. They rather dragged this investigation and this committee into the gutter, and that was proved by the gentlewoman from Georgia. If the gutter is where they choose to live, and the only purpose of this hearing is to drag us all down there with them, I don't want any part of it. I ask for unanimous consent to submit for the record a letter from Ways and Means Ranking Member Richard Neal outlining the improper steps taken by the majority in this investigation.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to yield my remaining time to Mr. Goldman of New York.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Gentlemen, I want to return to the Washington Post October 6th article, and I'd ask unanimous consent to enter it in the record. In your testimony, Mr. Shapley, before the Ways and Means Committee, you stated, quote, there was a leak. It appeared to come from the agent's level, who was critical of the prosecutors for not charging the case. What you testified earlier was a little different. Which one do you stand by today?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
There was a leak. It appeared to come from the agent's level, who was critical of the prosecutors for not charging the case.
Yeah, so, yeah, it appeared because it said it came from the agent's level, but the source was a source familiar with the topic, and it didn't say it was a law enforcement source.
Okay, it seems to be a distinction, I think, without a difference. And then you understand that obviously leaks of grand jury information is a felony, right?
Leaking and investigative information includes 6103 would be a felony, yes.
Well, that's true as well. So would you agree that there would be some skepticism from many prosecutors about which of the agents may be the source of a leak?
And gentlemen, time's expired, but feel free to answer the question.
Oh, since there have been multiple leaks in this investigation, and the one on December 8th or December 9th, 2020, that appeared to have come from someone, as Leslie Wolf stated.
I was just asking about October 6th, 2022.
So, I
It would cause anyone's suspicion, right?
if it says it comes from an agent level.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Gentlemen, time's expired. You're the next questioner after Mr. Fallon from Texas for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're just talking about obfuscating and diverting and distracting and spin and a whole lot of word vomit from the other side of the aisle. It makes no sense as to what we're here for today. And you hear a lot of Trump, 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 Rudy Giuliani, Giuliani, Giuliani. We're not talking about either of those gentlemen today. I want to thank both the witnesses for being here. I think it's been established that you're very credible, you're very experienced, you're subject matter experts at what you do. Mr. Shapley, you led a team of 12 elite agents in this investigation. How long were you investigating the sportsman, the Hunter Biden investigation? How long did you lead it for?
I started in January of 2020.
Okay, so 2 to 3 years?
That's correct.
Okay. You both, I'm sure, are aware that one of Hunter Biden's lawyers has accused you of having axes to grind and that you're disgruntled agents. Mr. Shapley, are you a political activist?
I am not, no.
You are not. Mr. Ziegler, are you a part of the MAGA movement?
I am not.
You're not. Okay, thank you. So I have to ask you a direct question, and it's an important one. Are you two out to get Hunter Biden, or are you out to get justice?
It's all about justice here, and that's why, a plea agreement, when people ask me to comment about the plea agreement, it's just,
Mr.
it is what
Ziegler?
it is outside of my control.
Justice, or you want to get Hunter?
It's justice.
Thank you. Okay. So the ranking member, who was a rather skilled orator, rather bombastically claimed when he was speaking earlier that this is all, and I quote, normal stuff, and there's no evidence that Hunter Biden received preferential treatment. So, Mr. Ziegler, do you agree with those statements? That this investigation was normal stuff, nothing out of the ordinary, and that Hunter Biden didn't receive any preferential treatment?
Based on my transcript, I would believe that answer would be, or that question would be incorrect.
Would you fair to say that you vehemently disagree with those statements?
I don't think it changes my perspective of it. All I can say is that we came forward with the information of slow walking, not following the investigative steps, and
So it was out of the ordinary.
yeah.
Okay. Mr. Shapley, do you agree with those statements or disagree with them?
Yes, this was out of the ordinary.
Okay. So when you read your transcribed interviews, which are pretty massive in and of themselves, it's clear that the levels of interference and roadblocks that the DOJ and other federal government personnel put in front of you was astounding, if not unprecedented. In these pages, I was really shocked to see how an assistant U.S. attorney stonewalled and scuttled your investigation. So let's go back. It's December of 2020. The prosecutorial team is meeting to discuss next steps. Hunter Biden has received millions of dollars in foreign payments. One of his shell companies, Wasco, to this day, no one can tell what the hell it ever did other than accept money. So nobody knows what services the company's ever provided, and it's December of 2020. Hunter is vacating Wasco's D.C. offices, and he's moving those documents to a storage unit in Northern Virginia. Mr. Shapley, were you pretty interested in what some of those documents might reveal?
Yes, we were.
Okay. And maybe possibly could have shedded light on criminal activity, felony community?
Unfettered access to the documents there before defense counsel can filter them and would have been very advantageous.
Could have been a treasure trove. We don't know. Okay, because of what happened later. So I'm going to get to that in a second. So did you prepare an affidavit to search that storage unit?
Yeah, I was the one that prepared
Okay,
that.
Mr. Ziegler did that. Did U.S. Attorney Weiss agree that if the unit wasn't accessed for 30 days, then you could execute the warrant?
That's correct.
Okay, so now that in and of itself seems kind of weird, though, doesn't it, to wait 30 days? And is somebody, how are you going to know if somebody accesses it? You can have is it going to be under 24-hour surveillance? Is it going to be a stakeout? Are we going to have to call Emilio Estevez and Richard Dreyfuss and have them there with the binoculars checking things out?
So it wasn't in the transcript, but this was a little bit a unique location where it would have been easier than what you just described. Okay. See if it was accessed.
But you didn't have to wait the 30 days, did you? Because did Assistant U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf, what did she do when she learned that you wanted to execute the search warrant on this storage unit?
So she actually first approved and was saying that it's going to take approvals for us to get this done, but then came back a few days later and said, no, we're not going to move forward with this. And I was the one who proposed, well, let's just wait 30 days. We'll get the approvals. We will make sure that the storage unit is not accessed, and then we can move forward with the warrant. Her response was, I'm going to think about it. And then we come to find out a few days later that they had let defense counsel know that we know about the storage
unit. Okay, so that's key. So a U.S. attorney tipped off the lawyers of a person who was the subject of a years-long criminal felony investigation. Is that what you're saying? Did Leslie Wolf tip off Hunter Biden's lawyers?
Regarding
the storage unit, that you guys had interest in the storage unit. Because once you know that, if you're the subject of a criminal investigation, any of those documents that can incriminate you are probably going to meet a match and some gasoline. So that's astounding to me, that is direct evidence, clearly, of preferential treatment, and that is not normal stuff. Is that normal?
So I can tell you that was actually my kind of red line situation, a little bit different than how Shapley refers to it, but I didn't think we had a seat at the table. It was just... It disappointed me so badly, but I knew this was something that we were up against, and that it was like, okay, that's what they decided to do.
Have either of you ever seen anything like that before in your decades of experience?
And gentlemen, time's expired, but please feel free to answer the question.
No, I have not.
I have not either.
Well, I want to thank you. I think you're both excellent public servants and you're courageous. And justice is the only thing I want to be blind. Not our Democratic colleagues, not the legacy media, and certainly not top administration officials.